evening. My name is GOGO LATORTUE, and we are here at Three Tides Restaurant and Bar in beautiful Port St. Lucie, Florida. Every week, the goal is to sit and have a conversation with people I call movers and shakers within this area. And this evening is no different. I have here with me, I'm sitting with ANDI POLI, who is a resident of Port St. Lucie, and ANDI has quite a remarkable story to share with us. ANDI, thank you for joining me, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
ANDI, tell me, or tell us a little bit about you.
A little backstory?
Yes, a little backstory, please.
So, okay. So I was born and raised, for the most part, in Springfield, Illinois, which is significant for a couple of reasons. It pretty much defined like the kind of person that I became as like an adult. You don't grow up in a place as steeped in history as Abraham Lincoln's hometown and just go about life not really being concerned about the impact that you'll have on the world. I mean, you're reminded on a regular basis when you live there, you can't go anywhere. Downtown, his name is on everything. The libraries are named after him. In the downtown area, they preserved his home completely and historically accurately preserved his home and the entire street of all the homes that were there when he lived there. It looks exactly the way it did when he and Mary Todd lived there. Oh, wow. So it's a lot of that. Just, you know, one person can impact history. One person can make a huge difference. One person can do the right thing when the right thing is being called for, even in the hardest of times. And you're raised that way, right? So there was no escaping that as I moved through the rest of the world.
Springfield, Illinois, it was in the news last year quite a bit.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Not always do we do the right thing in Springfield. However, we do have other history there. One of the first chapters of the NAACP was there. Okay. There were other black rights movements that happened that came out of Springfield. They had a lynching or something that looked like a lynching back in the Jim Crow days, even though Springfield was never really part of any of that. Illinois didn't have slavery laws, we didn't have slaves, we didn't have any of that stuff. But there's still racism that runs through the country, and it doesn't really matter where you live. It might be worse in one place than another, but it's still there. So they've had their moments in time when they fell a bit to the dark side, but typically they swing back to the bright. And it is, I think, a part of you can't be the hometown of Abraham Lincoln and then do bad things all the time. Right. At some point, you've got to clean up your own mess. Right. So yeah, they've done some things that sometimes not great.
Well, I don't think Springfield, Illinois itself, I would say for the most part, there's a lot of great and historical and very positive stuff that comes out of Springfield. It's just that the news, again, we have a lot to cover, so I don't want to kind of...
I know, but it's hard, isn't it? The town's got some stuff to offer.
Springfield, Illinois, do you still have family there, I'm sure, and the news that came out where immigrants, or particularly Haitians, were eating cats and dogs.
Different Springfield. That was Springfield, Ohio.
Oh my God!
Yes.
Oh my God!
Yes. No.
Thank you.
Springfield. Yes.
Thank you for.
Yeah. No, we have our own stuff to deal with. We are not taking on theirs.
I heard Springfield, and that was just.
I know. No, but Springfield, Illinois was in the news. They had an unfortunate incident with a lady, an African American lady, who was having an acute psychosis episode and was shot and killed by police. And it was a mental health crisis that she was in, which brings to light a lot of issues within the country that we have, that we don't adequately take care of people who have mental health disorders, that we jump to conclusions based on skin color. Just the relationship between law enforcement and the population. There are many things. So you could literally have said that at any time in history, and I would have been like, oh yeah, I'm sure let me tell you, something probably happened there. But like I said, in spite of all of the things that happen like that, the town has a tendency to swing back to the light. And so I'm always, even when they do something that makes the news, I'm always proud to have been a resident there for as long as I was. It is deeply ingrained. And, you know, it's a Midwestern town, so my grandfather was was a small business owner. I was raised in Western Missouri during the Depression, the Dust Bowl. So he brought with him that hardworking, that Midwestern work ethic that just kind of runs through all the veins of people who are from the Midwest. And I brought that here with me, and I instill it in my kids. And it's just, for me, it is part of being American and being proud of where you're from. Absolutely. Is that you put such effort into making the world a better place, however it is you do that, whether you field a crop or you start a business or you are a teacher, whatever it is that you do something to make the world a better place.
Let's go back to 10-year-old Andy.
She was a peach. Maybe not a peach, maybe not a peach. 10-year-old, of all the years that you could pick, 10 years old.
10 years old. What were your visions? What were your...
Well, you know what's sad is, of all the years that you could pick, I believe that it was somewhere in 9 and 10-year-old range was when I didn't speak very much. I had as a child, had gone through some trauma, and people didn't deal with trauma like they do now. They don't talk about it.
Of course.
So, and I was just a kid, and I didn't really know how to deal with it. So, at that point, I would say that I'm sure I had I want to be a veterinarian like every other kid who's 10 years old, but dreams of a bigger life, nah, that would come much later. Much later.
Why veterinarian?
I don't know. Why not?
I know 10-year-old me, I definitely wasn't thinking of veterinarian.
Well, it may be just 10-year-old girls. I don't know.
Okay.
But it is very typical of 10-year-old, definitely 10-year-old girls to say, "Oh, I want to be a veterinarian." My dreams came later.
Okay, that's where I was going. So going on from there, when did you kind of start getting a sense of what your purpose would be in life?
I was such a messed up kid. Just lots of trauma to deal with. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I started drinking when I was 17, and I was really far gone by the time I was 19. And so dreams just didn't seem like a big thing. They just didn't seem like anything that was going to happen for me. I was just always going to be somebody who maybe stumbled through life okay, maybe, and just survived it. And that's kind of the perspective that I had all the way up till about 19. And then, like a lot of people who have addiction, you hit what feels like a rock bottom, and you just decide a change has to come. I had no idea what that change was going to be. And then my little brother, who's about, a year and a half younger than me, gets drafted by the New York Mets out of high school to play baseball. Shockingly, I don't know if you know, spring training is here.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. That was the big thing for Port St. Lucie.
Yes, that was it. So I came here in his rookie year to watch him play. And my mom and I came here. We stayed in a hotel, the Holiday Inn, with the waterfall on US 1, because there wasn't much of anything.
It's still there.
It's still there. There wasn't really much of anything here. That was back in '95. Okay. And so I remember opening the curtains, and there were palm trees.
Right.
And I stared at them for a little bit.
Was that the first time you saw palm trees?
No, because we did family vacation stuff. I'd been to Florida before, but where I'm from, it's corn and snow. Those are our seasons.
Right.
We have corn, we have snow.
Right.
That's it. And beautiful falls. I will say that. Yes. Our falls are wonderful. But I had, everything in my life seemed very bleak. I wasn't doing I had flunked out of college. I was just living at home. I didn't have any direction. I was such a mess, and everything was blowing up around me, and I didn't know what to do. And I opened those those curtains, and I saw those palm trees, and I was like, just anything but going home. And I turned around and I looked at my mother, and I said, I'm coming back. In 6 months, I'm coming back. I'm coming back here, and I'm going to live here. And my mom was like, okay. That was the end of that. And like, she was like, okay, sure you will.
Yeah.
We stayed there for a little bit, and I went home and I worked 2 or 3 jobs, saved a bunch of money, packed up my bedroom, and 6 months later, I was a resident of the great state of Florida.
You were determined.
Yes, yes. So, and a little psychotic, I think, maybe just being 20 and cleaning out your bank account with the few thousand that you have in 1996 with no job and nowhere to live, and just driving to a place to live.
Wow.
And that was it. That's what we did.
That's courage.
Yeah, and crazy. A little bit crazy.
So when you got back here, so what did you do? You went back to the Holiday Inn? Or?
No, I think we stayed in the Best Western, which was in ill repair at the time.
Yeah, it's still there too.
It's still there too. They refurbished it. It's lovely now. But it was not the greatest in 1996. But I think we stayed there just long enough for me to find a place to live.
Okay.
And so I got an apartment, and eventually, like within a couple of weeks, I did temp work, whatever you can do. I had worked in offices, before with my other jobs when I was just trying to save up money. So I had experience. So yeah, I did temp work. I strangely, one of the temp jobs that I had was at the clerk of court. And I helped with the petitions for Baker Acts and hospitalizations. And I also worked in the domestic violence part. Yes. Which was, I guess, foreshadowing for where I was headed in life. Wow. Because it wasn't anything that I was looking to do. But that's where I was for a while.
Now, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Was this basically, hey, the temp agency calls you, listen, I have some work here. It wasn't anything that you targeted.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Right. I literally just landed there.
Okay.
And it was interesting. It was old Florida, the way that I always remember old Florida to be. I know the newer generations are going to think of old Florida as the way it was when I got here. Listen, the ladies I worked with were older ladies. They were I hate to say it this way, but they were sweet as can be, Southern as possible, and racist to tell. But it was just the way that it was. And it was eye-opening because from the land of Lincoln, I came down here, and it was the first time that I'd ever heard people use language like that, really do that. It was also a moment of growth. Like I realized that I could say, hey, you really shouldn't, like those, this is 1996.
You have the courage to come out
and say, maybe not anymore. And then they would come back with, this is the South. Like, I don't care. This is America.
Right, yes.
So it didn't really make any difference for them. But I did, for the first time, like stand up for someone who wasn't just me.
Right.
And that was, like, I really felt like I was giving my dues back to where I came from. And so it was an interesting time. And it was a struggle, I was poor. I tell my kids all the time, I read books by flashlight in an apartment that was about 82 degrees because I couldn't afford the lights, I didn't have cable, you couldn't run the air conditioner because it just was too expensive, and I just didn't make very much money. Most of my money went to my rent, and that's what I had to do to survive. And I wasn't going home, no matter what anybody said, and so you did what you had to do. And they laugh at me and think I'm joking, and I'm like, I'll show you a picture. You're not going to believe it.
Now, your family back home, did they say, she'll be back? Let her,
Yeah, some of them. I think my mom has always known me to be a bit headstrong and rebellious, so she knew that the moment somebody told me, you can't just move like that.
Right,
they sealed the deal. Yeah, they sealed the deal. I was never coming back.
Okay.
And it's been 30 years, and I have never once contemplated moving back. So Yeah. And then eventually, let's see, I just I was a beach bum for a while. I did the beach bummy thing, beach volleyball on Saturdays and, Wednesday afternoons by the pool because I didn't work that day and that kind of stuff. And just, the nightlife of a 20-something-year-old living in Florida.
Right.
Greatest place in the world to be at that age, at that time. I tell my kids all the time about how one of the coolest things about living here at the time was I was very much into alternative music and the grunge music scene, and there was a radio station just for that music. So when my kids listen to like Sirius Radio, Lithium, they're like, "This is so great," and we're like, "This is the radio. This is what it was like in 1996." Like it was like this all the time. It was a great time to be here. People were friendly, super weird. Loved it. Loved everything about the weirdness of Florida and the kinds of people that gravitate to this place. Loved all of that and getting to know new people from different places, different experiences. It was really just a great time to be open and young when you can do all of that. And not really caring about mortgages and college funds and all the stuff that comes later. And so I love that part. And then eventually I decided that I wanted to finish my college education. So just to backtrack a little bit, my grandfather, who was like my real like father figure, kind of you can do great things, that kind of guy in my life, had always pushed me for years and years and years to become a member of Mensa. A lot of people don't know what Mensa is, so just in case.
I don't either.
Just in case. So Mensa is it's the Geniuses Club. It's for people whose IQ is in the top 2%. You have to test into it through a variety of ways or whatever. My grandfather just kept saying, "Go do it, go do it, go do it," and I was like, "Yeah, it'll be fine." And I didn't really care all that much about it. And then I had a boyfriend in those early 20s who basically just said, like, "Stop messing around. You're wasting all of your talent. You're smarter than everybody you work for. This is ridiculous. Go back to school and get a degree." And I was like, whatever. So I did. And I went to IRCC back then, and finished my AA. I went at night. I was a full-time student, full-time employee. Finished my AA, got straight A's, and off to Florida State I went in 2000. And with a lot of life experience under my belt and a better appreciation for the education aspect of college than I had when I first went right out of high school. And so I did really well at Florida State, and I studied psychology and sociology.
That was going to be When did you decide to hone in on that field?
When I started to heal a little bit from the trauma of my youth, and I realized that I'm not alone. There are lots of people. The things that happened to me happened to a lot of people, specifically girls, but not only girls. And the trauma left behind is devastating. It changes your perspective on life. It changes your interaction with other people. Your level of trust is gone. You can't trust anyone. You don't know what's going to happen. And I wanted to be the kind of person that could help young girls in that situation understand that there's something better on the other side. That it does not have to feel like this all the time. You can do better. And so I went and got my degrees in psychology and sociology from Florida State University. And then I came back to visit a friend because I wasn't supposed to come back here. I was supposed to move to Austin to live with a friend of mine that I had gone to high school with. And I came back here to visit a friend, and while I was visiting that friend, I met a guy in a bar playing trivia. And that guy would later become my husband. So back here I came. I never made it to Austin. I left I graduated from Florida State, left Tallahassee, and came back here.
Came back to Port St. Lucie.
I went to work at what is now, I think, Port St. Lucie Hospital. At the time, it was Savannah's.
Savannah's, yes.
Yes.
So right on, yes.
Right.
Yes, Savannah's has
Right
a
there on-
history as well.
Yeah, and someone probably should have told me that when I
you
applied.
didn't
Oh, I
know?
didn't know. No.
How could
and
you not know?
Because it had happened while I was at Florida State, and I had no idea. So when I show up, they're like, "You do know." Like, because it had just happened like 2 years before that, or a year before that. And like everybody else knew, and I had no idea.
Just so everybody else can understand what we're talking about, it was called Savannah's at the time.
Yes, it was Savannah's Hospital at the
And
time.
there was a patient, I believe he murdered,
Serrano.
Is it 4 or 5 nurses?
He murdered 2 nurses, I think, and a patient, and hurt a bunch of other people.
Right.
Yeah.
That was
It was
terrible.
apparently gruesome.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. As soon as you said that, that's the first thing.
I know.
As a matter of fact, I drove past it the other day, and I was thinking about that scenario.
Yeah.
This is going back to, I believe, 2004, 3 or 4 or something like that.
It probably would have been in maybe 2001, because I graduated in 2002.
Okay.
And when I came back,
Okay.
it had happened.
Right.
He had been convicted.
Right.
And Savannah's had reopened because it closed, as we're told, right? And they had reopened and changed all of their safety protocols.
Right.
Which is how I found out.
After you were hired.
After I was hired and gone through all of the stuff, and somebody made one of the psych nurses made the comment about, "Oh, these safety protocols don't even work. I can't believe there's something. It was so much better before," something along those lines. And I
Whoa.
was like, "What do you mean?" And they were like, "What do you mean? What do I mean? Like, there were murders here." And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I mean, I was on the unit. I worked the night shift, like all of that. Like I was in the place where it happened.
How did you feel after learning all of this? I'm sure a little nervous.
You know what? Like, I think this is a personality thing. And some people might see it as a weakness or a flaw, but I do not see it as a weakness or a flaw. I felt sorry that people could be so sick and there not be any help for them.
Right.
Like, it's a horrific thing that happened.
Absolutely.
And he did a terrible, horrible thing. He deserves to have been, whatever punishment he gets for what he did.
Okay.
But he was also very, very mentally ill. He was in a psych hospital that couldn't help him enough to keep not only the rest of them safe, but him safe. I wasn't scared, because I've never really been scared of the patients. I just had an overwhelming sense of empathy. And I think that helped me get through the year and a half or so that I worked
That you
there
were-
with some highly acutely psychotic people.
Before we continue, producers are asking me to take a little break.
Okay.
So hold up that thought, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Three Tides Restaurant and Bar. We're here in beautiful Port St. Lucie. Again, I'm GOGO LATORTUE, and continuing the conversation with Andy Poli. Quite fascinating. Again, definitely one of the movers and shakers. Andy, we left off. Let's pick up right from there. We were talking about your
My time in the psych hospital? Yes.
Not your time in the psych ward.
I say it like that all the time. I'm okay with it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I worked at Savannah's for about a year or so, and I worked on the acute unit, which was in the very beginning was really just people who had been Baker acted and were moved in. So they're at the height of their psychosis, right? And they're going to be treated, and then when they're stabilized, we would move them out. At some point, Savannah's made the decision to also include people who were elderly and having dementia because they had similar needs, like medical needs,
Right.
Psychiatric med needs. And so having those two groups of people together was not always the best scenario, but it did give you kind of the breadth of what life looks like and how things can go off the rails a little bit
Right.
as you're moving through.
Right.
But while I was there, there was a patient, there were quite a few patients that had significant impact on my life and the way I perceived the world. But one of them was really important. And I tell this story all the time. When I was running for office, I told the story. And I try really hard not to make it very specific because I don't want to violate his privacy. But it was I think he was about 22, maybe 22-year-old kid who had graduated from college. He played football. He was an offensive lineman in college. So he's a very large human being, right? And I am not a very large human being. I'm very short. So he was a very, very big guy. And he had come in probably for his first psychotic break ever. He would eventually be diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, which is a combination of bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. So when he would cycle up to a manic state, he would have hallucinations. And devastating illness, manageable by medication, but a devastating illness. And it has a way of coming to light in your 20s like that. And it comes out of nowhere. So it really just catches you off guard. So he ends up on the unit. We get him stabilized. I had connected with him. We weren't very different in age. So I had connected with him, and I made him promise me that he would take his medication, that the only way his life was going to be able to be manageable was to take his medication. 60 days later, I come in for the night shift, and about 30 minutes after I get there, a chair comes through the window of the front door of the unit, and they're screaming and yelling, and I look up, and it's him. And he is in a wild state. He's in boxers and nothing else. It is the middle of the night, and so they put him in what people think of as a padded room, but it's an isolated room where he could not hurt himself or anyone else. They knocked him out basically, and so I didn't talk to him for the rest of the night. The next day I come back in, he's now stable and he's calm, and I'm sitting with him. I mean, this is how crazy I was. I'm sitting in a room with this guy who's like 6'4", 280 and psychotic, and I'm sitting in his room with him just having a conversation. And in that conversation, I said, we talked about this, like, you promised me that you were going to take your medication. Like, what the heck happened to you? He had been found at a gas station. He believed that the people at the gas station were vampires, and he was threatening them, right? So he's clearly out of it entirely. So when I asked him how he could get himself there and not take his medication, he told me point blank, one of them was $900 a month. That was 2003. In today's dollars, you're looking at a $3,000 bill for one medication, and he was on 4.
This was not covered by any type of insurance?
You have to have insurance in order for that to happen. He couldn't get his disability fast enough through Social Security because it takes a long time to get your disability. Even when you have one, it still takes a while to do it. I mean, he's in his 20s. And he couldn't hold down a job because he'd been Baker acted. And so it was hard for him to get a job. And without employment, he couldn't get private insurance, and he couldn't get his Social Security disability insurance. So no. And that was it. And there he was. And that was a cycle that he was going to be on for a very long time. Because, I mean, and every time I tell anybody that story, I always say, I know we're individualistic, I know we're looking out for ourselves, but we are in fact our brother's keeper.
Right.
And we have to look out for each other because he could have hurt somebody. He really could have hurt somebody. So it does matter that we look out for one another, because if we don't, we're all at risk.
Absolutely.
And that one really that one shook me. I mean, that's somebody my age,
Right.
and his whole life had just been derailed. And it was crazy. So after Savannah's, I went to go be a targeted case manager at Suncoast, which is now closed, which is sad.
I remember Suncoast.
Yeah, it was such a great facility and an organization for children who were having like just emotional problems.
Right.
I met great psychiatrists there, great therapists there, worked with great families there, people struggling with lots of different issues in life. And their kids always kind of manifest the problems inside of a family. You see it come out in the kids a little bit. And one of the things I learned at Savannah's working every once in a while in the children's unit is we'd had kids that would come and go. We'd send them home. They'd come right back because we just sent them back to what started it in the first place. So when I went to go be a case manager, that was a little bit different. I got to give them new stuff. I had a kid who was seriously depressed, very depressed, low self-esteem, very meek in stature, in communication style, all around. I put him in the police athletic league, turned him around completely. He took boxing classes and he was a totally different kid. It was stuff like that. You realize you can change a person's whole life just by paying attention. And so I did that for a while and loved that. It was great. But I knew I could make a bigger impact on a wider scale, and I wanted to do that. So then I went to go work for what is now the company I work for now is called Communities Connected for Kids. It is the privatization organization for foster care in the 4-county area, which is a big way of saying we manage all of the foster care stuff. So after protective investigations goes in and deems that a family needs some kind of assistance, either their children need to be removed for a time while their parents get their act together, or you can put stuff in place to help the family repair itself. That's where my company comes into play. And I work in contracts, so I get to buy all of the services, the adoption services and the case management services and the parenting services that we give to those families. The decisions that I make every day change lives. And that's big. That's big.
Now, going through, sounds like 3 lifetimes of experiences, and that kind of propelled you towards current state now as far as running for office. And so, tell us about that. I know
I did some stuff,
you've done some stuff, and you're doing stuff now. I know you're deeply involved in the political process and trying to get things to change. So tell us about that.
So
current day.
I've always been kind of a political junkie. I've always really liked politics. I thought it was because, again, big scale changes dramatically impact people's lives for the better. Government has the means to do it. It may not have the people that have the desire to do it all the time, but it has the means to do it. So I've always been kind of involved in that. The election of 2016 bothered me a lot, mostly because in conversations I saw a lack of understanding of what the principles this country was built on. I mean, in the time, I have a master's degree in public administration now. I got that later when I wanted to move on with my career. But over the course of my education, I have taken I've taken a test on the Constitution 3 times, which means I have had to memorize the Constitution 3 times. And then to have people talk about, the Constitution, and literally and consistently misquote it is so irritating to me. But I saw people just not really understand what a democracy is, what a president is, and what they're supposed to do. And I wanted to help people better appreciate the freedoms that our Constitution actually affords us. And to take their vote very seriously. So I joined the League of Women Voters, and I was president of that for a few years. We did candidate forums, and I watched how politics is twisting the way people think about each other, about where we live, about people who move here. And so I decided in 2021 that I didn't want to stay in the nonpartisan space anymore. I felt like it was, unfortunately, we were in a place where we had to pick sides. And I wanted to pick the side that wanted to keep a democracy in place, that truly believed that people have the right to govern themselves, and that wanted to really help people. And so I chose a side. I had been a registered, quote unquote, independent in the state of Florida, a nonpartisan or a non-party affiliate for the entire time that I have lived here until then. That was when I decided that the Democratic Party was the only place that I was going to feel good about what I was doing. And it is wildly flawed. Like, it is, any political party is wildly flawed. But at least it's trying to do good stuff for people. And its hands are kind of tied, and they were making bad mistakes, and they were losing their foothold in Florida and nationwide. And so, and I watched a lot of really bad laws get passed at the state level, Tallahassee level. We had things that marginalize certain groups of people. We have laws that basically rob us of our finances. I mean, our homeowners insurance laws, they passed those, and all of the high rates that people complain about, that's because of those laws. They did that to us. The housing market is a disaster. Everything is so expensive. It's not a lack of housing, it's a lack of housing anybody can afford. We don't pay very well. It's like this great state that I came to in the 90s where you could be free to be whoever you wanted to be, and people were cool with whatever it is you were going to do, as long as you weren't hurting anybody, had become like a shell of the place that I remembered. And I didn't want that anymore. So I decided to run for office. I ran for state rep in District 84. I got crushed because the Republican stronghold here is really, 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 it's big. It is what it is.
You know, in your view, then, I mean, I shouldn't say in your view, I guess it's in my view. It seems people are just voting based on their party, not really what the true message is. It's just hey, I'm a Republican, I'm going to vote Republican. I'm a Democrat, I'm going to vote I'm just going to go down this side.
Yeah.
How do we change that? How do we get the true message out this way? Like I say this all the time. I remember, the first time I was able to vote, I voted for Ronald Reagan. And I always listen to the message to kind of decide who I'm going to vote for. In the end, it seems like people are not doing that anymore. It's Democrats against Republicans.
Yeah.
But it's one nation.
Yeah.
So how do we change that direction, and how do we change that mindset?
There are so many things at play. One of the things being that we don't even all agree on what's wrong anymore, right?
True.
Like it was back in Reagan's day. I mean, you had inflation going through the roof. There were hostage situations that had happened in the 70s. There were very specific things that everybody agreed. These are the problems. And Republicans and Democrats and independents might have a difference of opinion on how to address those issues, but at least we agreed on the issues that existed.
Right.
We don't even agree on the issues anymore. We don't, depending on who you're talking to, and on anywhere on the political spectrum.
Right.
Climate change is either going to kill us all or it's a hoax.
Right, right.
And anything in between. And that's crazy.
I see you as very equipped to be able to understand the psychic of it all. Right?
Yeah.
So, with your background and expertise, is there a kind of a solution as to how to get people to listen to the message and not just, hey, my party says this is right, I'm going to go with that. People are not kind of making up their own individual thoughts and sticking to it. It's, hey, this is what my party's doing. Okay, I'm on that bandwagon.
Yeah.
How do we...
We have a couple of things that we definitely need to do as a society, and some of this is going to sound like really old ideas, but they're not. First of all, stop getting your news from videos. No more, I mean, I know we're here on a podcast, but no more getting your news from somebody who's not just going to report the news. Get your news from from newspapers. Like, read it. And the reason that I say get it, and I know, and the newspapers can thank me for this later. The reason that I say you need to read it is that when you read something, there's no one else with you when you do. It's you and the words, right? It's you and the author.
Right.
And if they are giving you just the facts, which journalists are supposed to do, so you have to be very careful about where you get your news.
Exactly, right.
But if you read it, then you, in your interpretation of each of the words that you have read, you have to formulate your own opinion. And that's the first thing that's missing, is that we're not really formulating our own opinions. What we're really doing is listening to somebody else's opinion on something and going, yeah, that sounds right, and just rolling with it.
Right.
And they could be horribly wrong.
Right.
They could be terribly wrong. And the guy on TV, I'm sorry, but a guy on TV in a news studio or wherever they may be that's got millions of dollars, I'm sorry, that guy does not understand your life. They don't. They don't understand what it's like to try and figure out whether or not you can buy groceries this week or if you have to wait till next week to pay your rent. They don't understand what it's like to, as a single mom, to not eat so that your kids can eat.
Right.
They don't get it. And so their opinion about your life isn't really relevant. Your opinion about your life is what's relevant. And we need to be able to look at what's happening in the world and say, but in my life,
Right.
I don't make enough money to pay rent.
Right.
Minimum wage at $15 in the state of Florida, that minimum wage doesn't cover the average monthly rent.
Right.
It doesn't even cover rent for a month. So how is that, like, how are we supposed to survive that? How is anybody supposed to survive that? And then when you've got, you know, somebody on Fox News or whatever talking about, wow, $15 an hour at a fast food restaurant, what's that? That's like, what, $80,000? Not even able to do the math, right? They don't understand. We need to come back to the person next door to you is not your enemy, and they feel the same things. We're not that different.
Right.
We're not that different.
The thing is, where do you get that source? You mentioned newspaper, but newspapers, that's God.
I know. It's so sad. It's so sad.
So what I do whenever I hear something, I go through different sources and to kind of see if it matches.
Yeah.
Even when you hear somebody's died, I always, it came up on here. I always check other sources to say, okay,
Yes.
so and so did.
Absolutely.
So I don't. Do you?
But you
think-
have sources that you trust, right? There are ones that you trust. See?
Good question.
Yeah.
I question. That's just me.
Right.
I question everything.
Sure.
All right. So whenever you think I'm weird, but
Doubtful.
I will put on CNN. I'll watch CNN, and then I switch over and I'll watch Fox, because it's obviously two very different points
Sure.
of view.
Sure.
So which one's right? So I think you have to kind of use your common sense
A little bit.
to kind of say, okay, let me go to another source and kind of get a good feel of what the spectrum of things that are being said, and to hone it down to what possibly could be the truth.
Yeah.
Because again, you said, is there a source that I trust? Not really. I remember back in the day, I grew up in New York, Long Island. I was an avid reader of, there was a newspaper called Newsday. Newsday, I started with Daily News, then I transferred over to Newsday. I used to trust that. But today, anybody could write their thoughts. It all depends on what I want people to get out of it.
Yeah.
I have a good friend of mine who's into statistics. And he does work for different organizations as far as marketing and blah, blah, blah. And if I want to prove to you that this is worth whatever, I'm going to get a group of people with the same mindset, and I'm going to take samples from that group that is going to validate this.
Sure.
It doesn't necessarily mean, in the commercial will say, hey, most people recommends this and feels this is very valuable. But again, the pool that he's pulling from is very
Yeah, it's those thing lovers.
Right.
Is what it is.
So,
Yes. So what do you do? I mean, and as somebody who really, I mean, I see it. Okay, so I mentioned the thing about Mensa. So I am a member of Mensa. So I spend some time being around other like really
Geniuses.
smart people, right?
Okay.
And I want to be very clear about the whole high IQ thing. The whole does not mean that I'm smarter or better or any. People bring their own set of brilliance
Right.
to any table.
Right.
And I can't put a car together, but I know that there are people who are not in Mensa who can totally do it in a couple of days or whatever. I would be baffled by it. And most really smart people feel that way about people, is that we all just bring something to it.
Right.
The one thing that it gives me, what it affords me, the gift that it gives me, is that I can take information, I can process it really quickly. So I can take things that I've learned and I can apply them to something almost immediately. That's what the high IQ does. It doesn't make me smarter or whatever. It's
Right.
it just makes me able to move on to the next thing quicker, which is neat because I get to learn a lot of stuff really fast. But no better, no worse than anyone else. Which is one of the things that an entire group of people has tried to convince another group of people, that people like me think that group of people are bad people and they're dumb and worthless, and we don't look at people like that. It's just not the way that it works. But that's just kind of an aside. But having the link to the Mensa thing, I get to kind of be around or communicate with people who also really like nerdy stuff, like statistics and data, and they can crunch it fast and they can synthesize it and put it in words, and they don't have to explain so much to us because we kind of are with them. And I love that. What I'm most afraid of right now is that the place that people like me go to get data, statistics, pieces of information that we can trust is the primary source. Whoever is collecting the actual data and then looking at the data they've collected and making decisions that way. The actual do your own research people, not the not the online do your own research people. And now we've come to a place where some of even those sources are being manipulated by government control. And what do you do with that? I mean, if Health and Human Services is about to like, we're just going to kind of manipulate what it looks like when you get a vaccine and what that data, then you can't even trust them, right? We can't trust necessarily the data coming out of labor statistics about whether or not we have a good job market. Those things that makes things scary for everyone. So finding a trustworthy news source is going to be very, very difficult for most of us. But just believe your eyes. Believe them. When you see something that doesn't feel right, it's probably not right. Don't be afraid to say, like, I don't think I make enough money, or I'm really struggling in the world. People feel it. Everybody's struggling a little bit. Everybody's a little bit scared. Either they're scared for themselves, or their parents who are getting older, or their kids who are going off to college or not able to go off to college. They're going to be new parents. They're going to buy a new home. They want to buy a new car. They're going to start a new job. Whatever it is, they lost their job. Whatever it is, everybody is going through a thing. And we all feel those struggles at some point. Some of us are better able to overcome those things, but all of us feel them. And if we don't work together to try and make everything a little bit easier for one another, everything is going to be a huge struggle forever.
Let me ask you, right now, are you targeting any type of office that you feel that you would be a good fit to effectively make some positive changes?
So Queen of the World sounds great, but it's not an office. I personally am not looking to run for office anytime soon. I have, like I said, the Democratic Party has been a bit of a mess, and it makes a lot of mistakes, and there are some things that I think that they should do much different than they've been doing them.
Okay.
So I accepted the role of chairperson of the county Democratic Party to kind of do a reset on how we function here. for a very long time, St. Lucie County, in the very best of it, in the heyday of St. Lucie County, when I moved here and it was so great to live here and we were booming and things were great, it was run by Democrats. Almost the entire thing it was almost entirely Democrats.
Okay.
I don't think that that's the right way to do it either. No one party should have complete control. There should be a balance, but there should be a balance.
Right.
And right now, the county is being run by Republicans. People complain constantly about traffic and congestion
Right.
and overdevelopment
Things
and no
that
jobs.
affect us all.
Right. That is a lack of competing perspectives on how to address the problems that exist. So I took this role on in an effort to find really good people to run for local office, county, city office, to make those changes that will really help actual people who live here, to make this place as great as it has ever been and will ever be.
Andy, I thank you so much for sharing this time with us. You are definitely an inspiration to any young lady who's watching you, any young person, that, you know, no matter where you are in life, you can always, living proof, there's a superstar in a lot of people out there that needs to come out, and yours has definitely come out and is lit brightly, and I look forward to the changes that you're going to effectively put in place to make this area better. Any last words before we close out, Andy?
You know, I always kind of end on any conversation that I have like this to speak to the youngest people of us all, because I am the mom of 2 teenage daughters and a stepson who's in his 20s. I see the struggles that they have. I went through struggles that I kind of talked about a little bit today, but the world that we live in now is, I could never have done that now. It's too difficult to do what I did when I was 20. And I recognize that, and I know it must be so scary for the younger generations to look at a future, stare down the barrel of a future that doesn't look as bright as the one that was promised to me. We, as adults, have a responsibility to the young people of this country to put the light back in the future. It is up to us. We know how it's gone off the rails. We know what's been done and gone wrong. We know how to do it better. We need to care as much about their future as we care about our own and our own present. This is their time. We are simply borrowing it from them. So,
Andy, thank you so much. You heard it here. Andy, POLI, we're really going to keep an eye on the future. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, my name is GOGO LATORTUE here at 3 Tides Restaurant and Bar in beautiful Port St. Lucie, Florida. Have a good night and take care of yourself.